Hi, my name is Abby Cassler, and I am a teacher for an autism room within a district around the metro. I have kiddos with autism who are grades 3 to 5. Each of my kids are one-on-ones. One of my kiddos has a 2-on-1. So there are a lot of bodies in my room. There's a lot of moving parts to it. I use DTT a lot in my classroom because my kiddos they're SMP kids. They're severe and profound. So they all have pretty significant autism. The DTT trial that I am going to explain about today is letter identification. And I just have cards and materials up until G, but you can do it with the entire alphabet throughout a span of however many days. I wouldn't recommend doing more than like 5 cards at once, just because that can be overwhelming to students. The reason that letter identification is important is because obviously it's the very first step to learning how to read. First you learn letter identification, then you learn what sounds the letters make, and then eventually you are able to read. And we all know why it's important to know how to read. Sorry, I'm reading my notes. The student that I use this with, he is probably my most severe student. He doesn't know any of his letter sounds, any letter identification, no number identification. He's the one that has the 2-on-1 associate, and he's the one that I use DTT with all day long during my SDI with him. So what I do is I have letter cards, like I said, all the way up to G. There's just a bunch more in here. And then I also have letter magnets to help him to use mixed and varied materials, just so he doesn't learn to be super rigid and just like, oh, I only identify A on a flashcard. So what I will need, Olivia, pick that up. Sorry, my daughter's playing with Orbeez. Always so fun. So what you need is a data sheet to collect the data over the trials, the letter cards right here, the letter magnets, and a reinforcer. And for this specific student that I do this with, he is very food motivated. So we always, like, his mom sends in like fresh food because I didn't really like the whole idea of giving him like chips and fishies all day long. So we just cut up like a banana or a strawberry, and we have that on hand. So then what we do is you just start with one letter, and I say, this is A, touch A. He either touches A, or I go over to the error correction where I'll give him the correct response right away. Sometimes I will do hand over hand also with it during the error correction. And then we start all over again. This is A, touch A, and then he'll touch it or back to the error correction. And then after a couple trials of him being, after a couple trials of him being successful with the flashcard, then I will start to bring out this, and I'll say, this is A, touch A. And then he'll either touch it or we go through the error correction. Whenever I do the error correction and we restart over, I make sure to delay my prompt just to give him an opportunity to be successful while he is trying to process my correction and be independent with it. If I do ever lose instructional control throughout my DTTs, I stop what I'm doing and I go back and regain that instructional control. Because if you don't have instructional control, you're not going to get anywhere with your instruction, and it'll just be a waste of everyone's time, and then problem behaviors will start. So sometimes what I do just to check if I feel like I'm losing him, once in a while I'll just be like, touch nose, touch your nose, touch your head, do something like body movement wise, just to check and make sure that I still do have that instructional control with him. As soon as he gets one letter mastered, then I move on to a discrimination set. So I will pull in another letter and then do the same thing over again. Alex, this is B, touch B. either touches it or I start error correction, and then we start going into touch B, touch A, and then we also do it with these. One way that I also generalize it by using mixed and varied materials. Besides that is he likes to go on a lot of walks, and so he likes to work for walks. So directly after our DTT instruction, we will go on a walk, and we point out, I bring to his attention all the A's or all the B's or whatever letter it was that we were working with that day in the hallway, like on signs, on posters, and we kind of do the same thing in the hallway real quick, like, oh, there's A, touch A. If he touches A, good job, reinforce. If not, error correction, do hand over hand, and then we just kind of move on. So it's not technically DTT, but it's just a good way to generalize it. One thing, it said that we have to discuss the cautions when doing DTT. One thing that I sometimes get myself, like I catch myself in, is DTT has so many different steps, and there's so many different like specific ways you have to do things. And so I have realized that sometimes on the spot, especially when problem behaviors are starting, it can be kind of hard to like think exactly, okay, this is where I'm at with this is my next step. And it can kind of go downhill quickly because it is so specific. So what I do is I always just make sure that I have my steps posted. Because eventually I get to a point where I can, like right now, like if I go do it on Monday, I can do it for memorization, but I still just have it posted just because sometimes altering it right on the spot and being like, oh shoot, okay, gotta go to error correction. Oh, what's error correction look like again for this student, for this concept? So, and then it said that we have to address what DTT, like if DTT is appropriate for older students, even though it's not research-based strategy intervention to use with them. Even though it's not research-based, I think that you need to meet kids where they're at, their level, and if that's the level that they need, it doesn't really matter what age they are, because if DTT will be successful for them to acquire new foundational skills that they need, then why not? But that's all I have. So thanks for watching.